Whether you draw tight and clean or loose and expressive, the pencil stage is where clarity and emotion really show up. Today, in Panels in Progress, we're diving into the process of penciling your comic pages, what to watch out for, and how to keep it readable. So let's talk about what the pencil stage really does. The pencil stage is structure plus clarity. You're defining the space, the depth, anatomy, storytelling. You're answering questions. What's in the background? Where's the light coming from? And is this pose readable? Think of this stage as roughs being the idea, layouts being the blueprint, and pencils the actual house frame. And why does this matter? Strong pencils make inking easier. Editors, or the future you, will thank you because they'll be able to see exactly what's happening on your page. It saves you from redrawing it later. I'd like to say that most of your problem solving should be thought out while you're penciling. If you've got a particular scene, you need to understand like what's in the scene, who's in the scene, where are they standing in relation to each other. Is character A holding a cup in their hand? Well, they should be holding a cup in their hand also in the rest of the panels because this cup is important because they throw it later. Like, you need to know all these little details as you're putting the things together. You're adding form to the loose lines that you drew. This, like, where your thumbnails could be stick figures, this is where you're actually drawing the form of your character, the facial expressions, the body expressions, the backgrounds, at least getting the perspective figured out for them, or you've got your 3D model set up for backgrounds, whatever the case may be. Like, all of that should be happening in this phase. Now, let's talk about styles. There's different types of penciling styles, and not all penciling styles are the same. It just depends on your workflow and whether you're inking traditionally, digitally, or skipping inking altogether. All of it matters. There's loose pencils. Usually expressive artists or self-inkers keep their pencils very loose. It's more gestural, emphasizes rhythm and energy, and they often clean them up just enough right before the inks or colors go on. A couple examples would be Takehiko Inoue from Vagabond. Even his pencils could pass for final art. They're loose but powerful. Manga artists like Ichiro Oda for One Piece, he uses simplified, clean lines and pencils because he knows that his inks are going to be very fast and expressive. Then there's tight pencils. Great if you're someone who you ink yourself or you're giving your pencils away for someone else to ink and you know exactly what you want in each scene. You have more structure, you clean up the anatomy, you define the forms. If you have tighter pencils, this helps prep for complex lighting, textures, and background. Example artists that are tight pencilers would be Greg Capullo. He's got crazy detailed pencils, muscle anatomy, debris, shadows, everything's clear before the ink. Fiona Staples works digitally, but you can tell that she uses tight forms and values at this stage before painting over it. And I'd also consider David Finch a very tight penciler. He has a creating a comic page course on proco.com where you get to actually watch him pencil a page, and you can just see the level of detail that this man is pouring into his artwork. Even when he's going to ink it or he's going to send it off to another inker, he puts a very high level of thought and detail into his pencils. Check it out. I'll say for this, you might want to be careful because for a long time I was following, and I still do, but I was watching a lot of YouTubers that are professional comic artists, or at least they're professional manga artists where they have their works published and things like that. And they were saying that they would literally go from their rough sketches or their thumbnails, and they would take that and go straight to inking. They wouldn't even do like a rough pencil phase. And I would say, depending on your art level or your skill level, you might want to avoid that advice, because if you don't have all of that foreknowledge of what your characters look like, what expressions they're going to have, or what the background even looks like, you could kind of run into this issue where every single time you're trying to do a panel, you're now having to do research on the side to solve these problems. So I would say take your time with your pencils, have the forethought of what's in the foreground, what's in the background, what's in the midground, and where's the light coming from. It's all very important. Like some artists feel that this step is unnecessary, but I would recommend that if this is your first time doing a comic, or maybe you haven't done very many comics, I would recommend still sticking with just either loose pencils or rough pencils, tight pencils, but add in detail on top of your thumbnails so that way you get a clearer picture when you're working on it for the comic. So here's some things to keep in mind while you're, like I said, this is the time to solve visual problems before they become final mistakes. You can watch out for readability. Can a new reader tell what's happening in each panel? Silhouettes, strong poses, read clearly even in shadow. Camera angles, mix it up. Don't just use mid shots. Remember that you've got an array of camera angles that you can use, and you should be mixing and matching the camera angles and the different types of shots for more impact for your storytelling. Backgrounds, don't leave them for later, block them in now. And let's be honest, unless you're just a background artist, most of us do not enjoy backgrounds. We don't even want to think about backgrounds because we've got really cool characters that we'd rather be drawing. But I can't tell you how many times that I have kicked myself or wanted to cry because I did not properly plan out the backgrounds, and now I'm trying to pencil and ink or whatever I'm trying to do, and I still need to figure out what's in the background, or even worse, I thought about the background, but the angle that I'm drawing that background from has nothing in it, so it looks like they're standing against a wall of nothingness when really they should be in a room somewhere. So yeah, I know it's a pain, but make that time to plan out your backgrounds. It's not going to take you that much longer. Overlap elements, use perspective, layer background, foreground, middle ground. Basically more of what I just said, which is just make sure you are creating an environment, a real scene, and not just a flat picture. Here's some things you can plan for. Again, word balloon placement, light sources, and consistency. So word balloon placement, I said it in the thumbnailing video, and if you still haven't considered where your bubbles are going to go, then you really need to figure that out before you start putting in those extra details. Put your bubble in there, make the bubble a little bit bigger than you think it needs to be, so that way it can fit the text that you need it to fit, because you never know if you might have to resize the font or something like that. So bubble placement, definitely a top priority that you should be figuring out right now. Your lighting sources, this is going to help you with your inking later. Like I said, the more problems that you solve in either the thumbnailing phase or the penciling phase, it is going to make your inking phase, your coloring phase, all the other phases so much easier if you just put the work in on the front end. And then consistency. Consistency, you can take this many different ways. Do your characters all look like they should look no matter what angle you draw them from? Does the room that they're in, does it maintain that look that you want to look like, Or, like I said, if a character is supposed to have a cup in their left hand for the entire page, make sure that it stays in their left hand. Just little details like that. And as far as the lighting or the colors, I mean, we'll get to that later, but you just want to make sure that you're maintaining a level of consistency as best you can. Some examples to check out: Invincible, Ryan Otley, clean pencils with clear action and shape clarity. Blue Period, pencil stages show emotion through posing and simplicity. Witch Hat Atelier, background elements and props are sketched with story in mind. Now here's some common mistakes that I've definitely made in the penciling stage, and if I can help you avoid making them, it'll be all the better for it. Common pitfalls: rushing. Penciling is where you fix things, not fly through. Like I said, I can't tell you how many times I was so excited to just get to the comic part, get to creating the story, and I wished that I had done more work on the penciling phase because it drastically slowed down the inking phase, because I just didn't do the problem solving. I didn't know what all should be in the background. I didn't understand the character relations to each other, or which character is taller than the other, or something like that. Like, these are all things that could have easily been solved, but I was rushing. I wanted to just make the comic. And I'm pretty sure you're more than ready to just make the comic too. But like I said, doing this work on the front end will save you time. Leaving too much to inking, if it's not clear in the pencil stage, it likely won't be fixed in the ink. And this is very true. There's been plenty of times where I thought that I had left myself enough clues to know what I should be inking once I got to that stage, but instead I didn't, and I had to go back and figure it out. And that's really the cautionary tale for a lot of these common mistakes, is you don't do it in the beginning, so now you've got to go back and figure it out, or you're now dropping the whole character in shadow because you just don't know what to do with it. Over detailing everything, not every panel needs to be full render. Prioritize key moments. So this is big because I can't say that I'm not at a phase in my work where I feel like I go overly detailed on a lot of things. I still have a lot of impressions from my animation days, so I feel like I need more detail in my work, not less. But I can say that usually this stems from us, if you're working digitally, zooming in way too much or focusing on the tiniest detail on a page. So let's say you've got I can't even think of like a good example of what this could be, because there's been plenty of times where I'm putting in details that the reader might not even notice, won't notice, or they didn't worry about. We've all read comics, we've all read manga where the artwork is beautiful, the artwork is amazing, but when the story's really good and you want to get to the next panel, how much time are you really spending looking at each panel? I think that's kind of the hard truth about our media, is that you spend so much time working on these comics, working on these panels, making sure everything looks just right, and the reader spends less than 2 seconds looking at it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are those panels that you might stop and admire the intensity of that moment. But even stopping for an extra 20 to 30 seconds, like the work that went into it, it doesn't add up. So just remember that some of those fine details, save it for your big moments, save it for those important panels. Don't waste all that detail on some panel that's insignificant. It's just a waste of time, and it's not necessarily going to be appreciated, but save it for the big moments. Save the detail for the big moments. And then panel cramming, with respect to white space and margins. Panel cramming, you can have way too much going on in a panel. Either the bubble is just kind of haphazardly shoved in there, the words are too big for the bubble, or the artwork is covering up half the face. I know we've all seen those panels in comics and manga where there was so much text that needed to be said that now half of the panel is all text and then you just see like half of the character's face. It's like, did they really plan it this way, or did they just misplan? We won't know, but don't let that be you. Make sure you're giving yourself the space you need, the panel space you need to get your point across. So zoom out and ask yourself, would someone understand this page at a glance? If not, it's time to simplify or clarify. Jake Parker, I've been a part of his recent graphic novel pro class, and he's always saying clarity over everything. Well, no, he says clarity over clarity over cleverness, clarity over detail. Like, basically, if your reader can't tell what's going on, then it doesn't matter how much detail, how much work you put in there. If your reader is getting lost in the details, then it doesn't matter. It's not impressive. But if it's clear and detailed, you'll definitely get the respect of your reader and fellow peers. Style doesn't mean complexity. You don't need to draw hyper-detailed pencils to make good comics. Strong storytelling will always be better than fancy rendering. And some artists do rough pencils and go straight to color or stylized ink. It's really up to you. Adventure Time uses simplified forms but strong posing and timing. Nimona uses minimalism, exaggeration to support high emotions. The point is, it's up to you and your level on how detailed you want to be for your comic, how much you want to put into your comic. You've got to remember that we're learning. I'm learning. You're learning. We are learning how to make comics. We are learning how to make the best comics that we can make. And you've got to remember that at this point, since we're going to make more than just one comic, each comic that we make is going to be better than the last. So don't be so hard on yourself. Just keep drawing. Make the best comic that you can make at your current skill level, and you're going to do all right. You're going to be fine. Penciling is the step where your comic starts to come to life. It's where you make the decisions that shape how your reader feels. You're crafting space, rhythm, emotion, and clarity all before the ink touches the page. Whether you pencil loose and raw or tight and clean, just remember that the goal is to always serve the story. Your pencils are there for the story. Let the lines guide the eye, let the expression speak, and let the rough start become something real. Have you been working on your pencils? What's your process like? What's your pencil style? I'm still working on developing my style, still trying to figure things out, what works best for me, but these are the tips that I have so far. And if you have some helpful tips that would add to make my life easier and everyone else's while making comics, please make sure to share them in the comment section below. Until next time, keep drawing.